Quick update before we start. The Sonic Frontiers giveaway has concluded. I hope the winners forge their new frontiers. Also, I've opened up a Discord server. If you want to chat it up, join us. I'll link it below. This week's material was pretty palatable. Not the best, but still a treat nonetheless. Today's video is special because while I'm just covering issues 198 through 200, I'm also tackling several Sonic Universe issues. Now, what is Sonic Universe? Archie Sonic has various spin-off comics, each of them expanding the lore and elaborating on plot points that aren't touched on as much in the main series. Sonic Universe is a spin-off comic that not only tells its own stories, but oftentimes has stories that directly correlate to the main plot, not unlike the stories that come at the end of every issue. In addition to this, there's also a Sonic X spin-off comic as well, but it's less important for now. From now on, I will be explaining the story of Archie Sonic with the inclusion of Sonic Universe in mind. Take a look at this. With all things considered, this is the reading order for these comics. We will be catching up with what happened to Shadow and Metal Sonic after they were warped away during Hedgehog Havoc, then discuss the setup to the Iron Dominion's invasion. I personally like to call this portion of the story Eggman's downfall for reasons you'll see in just a bit. Then finally, we'll wrap it up with Shadow's story and the future segment at the end. Ready? Let's go! So, growing up, I cherished Sonic X. So taking a peek at this issue was a treat. When Shadow used Chaos Control on Metal Sonic and Moebius, he warped them to Sonic X World, right after the Space Colony incident, but right before the Metarex saga. Metal runs away to look for the nearest Eggman, but Shadow catches X-Sonic up to speed on the situation. But this version of Sonic, being more relaxed, decides to give Shadow a tour of their world instead. He meets the Chaotix, Chris, who thought he was dead, and Sam Speed. Eventually, like Sonic said, Metal and Eggman show up, and he's surprised to see Shadow walking about. Shadow warps away with Metal again, and Eggman flees. He runs to check on X-Shadow, who he's been keeping in recovery chamber since his fall. This is a very fun issue, great characterization across the board, and a strong start for the Sonic Universe series. Shadow and Metal Sonic warp to an ocean. Shadow tries to reason with Metal Sonic to not be used by Eggman as he was, but Metal Sonic kicks Shadow underwater and begins to look for the nearest Eggman again. Shadow surfaces from the water, finding Marine and Blaze on the ocean tornado. After bringing him on board, Blaze asks Shadow if he's related to Sonic. He tells her no, but that he does in fact know Sonic, and explains to her that he was transported to her world by pursuing his evil robot duplicate. As they head to the shore, Shadow asks Blaze how she knows Sonic. She retells the story of both Sonic Rush games. Marine has her overconfident gags mixed in there as well. Once they reach the mainland, Marine realizes that the island is under attack. Blaze finds Metal Sonic attacking her people, and before she allows Shadow to reason with it again, she retaliates. The Sonic fanbase loves Blaze and usually sees her as a wise and calm presence. But all that balances with her fiery disposition, her sense of responsibility, and her hyper-independence. Even I tend to forget that side of her, and this moment was a great reminder of what makes Blaze so much more distinct than the others. Shadow and Blaze try to stop Metal Sonic, but Marine, being the overconfident kid she is, ends up getting in the way. Once again, Shadow tries reasoning with Metal to not be a pawn for Eggman. Metal states that Shadow and Metal are one and the same, both built to fulfill a function, and that their functions simply oppose one another. This is great character writing, as it shows how effectively simple Metal Sonic is, but also reminds the audience that Shadow's character is to be a protector, a peacekeeper, a good cop, if you will. Blaze, Shadow, and Marine pull off a combination attack to defeat Metal. With the zone-hopping engine destroyed along with him, Shadow asks Marine if she can build another zone-hopping boat like she did for Tails. But she lied about doing that, being unable to deliver. Blaze hands him a Chaos Emerald. Remember in issue 168 when I explained that the Archie Sonic universe has tons of Chaos Emeralds? Until issue 170 when the deity Vice condensed them into 7? Before all of that, Sonic handed Blaze a Chaos Emerald to help her find the Soul Emeralds, as they attract one another. Now Blaze is handing it back to Shadow. He thanks her and warps back to the Prime Zone, the main dimension where the story takes place, and he's in the Gun HQ. So this is where the story starts to make more sense. Apparently, after issue 171, when Shadow learned the truth about Gerald Robotnik, Shadow started doing missions for GUN, one of them being to neutralize Enerjack back in issue 182. Now we learn that the reason Shadow popped up in Hedgehog Havoc was because the gun commander gave him and Hope a mission to get the Chaos Emerald from Feist, like Sonic did in issue 170. They used a machine just like the Star Post to get there, but it obviously led to the wrong location. While we're on the topic though, Eggman's family tree is so weird. So apparently, Hope is a Kintober and the half-sister of Snively, right? But he's also a member of the Kintober family. Their father wasn't the Kintober from Scourge's world. There was a Dr. Kintober in the Prime Zone whose brother was Dr. Robotnik, but Dr. Robotnik died during Pender's era Archie. But Dr. Robotnik had an alternate dimension version of himself known as Robo-Robotnik, who downloaded his mind into a skin suit, which he gave the name Eggman. It's complicated stuff, but anyways, the GUN commander compliments Shadow on a job well done and has him prepare for the next mission. Alright, so we're a good 6 minutes into the script? We're just now starting from where we left off from last time. Do y'all remember how urgent it was for the Acorn Council to raid Eggman City after Enerjack weakened it? Well, now we meet our heroes on the battlefield flanking the Dark Egg Legion, once again, with Sally leading the charge. The Legion prepares to take aim at the Freedom Fighters, but thanks to Sally and Tails' plan, their guns were shut down, neutralized, with Sally advising the Legion to surrender. Eggman's new Egg Phoenix bathes the entire battlefield in scorching flames, allowing the Legion to retreat and forcing Sally to come up with a contingency plan. At Eggman's lair, Dimitri threatens Snively, stating that they will not continue to treat his people like collateral damage, telling Snively that he is aware of Snively's upcoming treasonous plan and will inform the Doctor. Snively proposes that Dimitri could also benefit from his plan. Sonic and company spring the new plan into action, having Sonic taunt Eggman into pursuing him. Up, and up into the sky, where the flames of the Phoenix are distinguished by the high altitude. As Sonic and the Egg Phoenix fall, Charmy, Ray, and Saffron attach signal disruptors onto the Egg Phoenix and catch Sonic. As the Phoenix falls closer to the ground, Tails jams the engine signal remotely, colliding the Phoenix with a mountain nearby. Eggman ejects and makes his escape. Sally decides to have the team call it a day and uses a barrier to set up camp right outside of Eggman's base, with Sonic assuring Tails that it will all be over tomorrow. Eggman returns to his base, saying that tomorrow will be it, with Snively and Dimitri conspiring against him. We return to Sonic Universe, where we are continuing Shadow's perspective. Later that night, Shadow appears at the force field camp that the Freedom Fighters set up and invites Sonic to briefly help him with a mission. Sonic and Shadow rendezvous with Rouge, who explains that Eggman has a nearby cannon that is capable of destroying everything by his base, including the camp. As this issue plays out, there are different flashbacks to Sonic Adventure 2 that parallels moments within this issue. Sonic, Shadow, and Rouge break into the cannon's control room to deactivate it, but it doesn't work. So instead, they try to smack it so that its trajectories are thrown off. That fails as well. With no choice, Shadow removes his inhibitor rings and uses Chaos Control on the cannon as it tries to fire. Sonic catches him from falling off the cannon, saying, "We're not doing that again." Shadow tells Sonic that he owes Sonic his gratitude, and decides that the rest is up to him, saying that it's his right to defeat Eggman. Shadow is written so unbelievably well here that it hurts. I've grown so used to seeing the edgelord Shadow that we've gotten in the recent years of the franchise, to the point where it's beyond refreshing to see Shadow return back to his former glory. He's a man of integrity, a protector, and someone who respects those who aligns with his goal. He may be a bit too humble here, but given the circumstances of his last meeting with Gerald at the Freedom HQ, it makes complete sense that Shadow's willing to give Sonic so much respect right now. Sonic Universe 3 happens in the morning preceding the raid. Shadow is tasked with recruiting Gamma from Sonic Adventure, as he is a rogue robot that can help in the fight against Eggman, who also happens to deploy Omega to find and destroy Gamma. So basically, GUN and Eggman are both looking for Gamma, and it's a bit contrived. Eggman sends Omega to destroy Gamma simply because he feels like it, even though the Freedom Fighters are literally at his doorstep. And Gun sends Shadow to find a robot to help fight against Eggman, even though, again, the Freedom Fighters are literally at his doorstep. But I digress. Shadow is having a character arc where he wants to liberate living weapons from being used by Eggman in the way that he and Metal Sonic were. Shadow sets off and is the first one to find Gamma and befriends him. Omega comes out of the woodwork, sending Shadow flying and pursues Gamma. While Gamma is more agile, Omega mocks him for being an outdated and weaker model. Gamma knows he can't beat Omega face to face, so right before Omega blows him to bits, he downloaded himself into Omega's coding. Gamma fully integrates into Omega, allowing Shadow to befriend and recruit Omega. I'm actually having whiplash from Shadow being written as an actual character with agency and legitimate reasonings, because after the mission, he's upset with himself for being unable to truly save the Gamma. Hope and Rouge cheer him up though, by filling him in on their next mission. Before we start, I just want to say Tracy Yardley's art improvements have been astounding. Yardley has always produced my favorite art for these comics, but the difference between issue 160 and 199 is night and day. For example, as Sonic wakes up, Sally explains that she's setting up a live stream for the citizens back home to see the results of the final showdown with Eggman. As they get ready to charge into the Empire, we are given a gorgeous page with our heroes front and center. The Legion prepares a barricade for the base, with Dimitri reminding Leanda of their new plan. Any port in a storm, he responds to her doubts of Snively. The Freedom Fighters break in, and the raid begins. During the raid, Dimitri encounters Knuckles and Julie Sue while Snively prepares himself for the impending stranger. The Legion has the Freedom Fighters pinned down by gunfire elsewhere, and Sally comes up with a plan to get around them. They stop unexpectedly. Dimitri tests Knuckles' resolve before moving out of his way. The Freedom Fighters and the Chaotix converge at the final obstacle in the base. Espio, who is spying on the Legion, informs everyone that the hole in the barricade is meant for Sonic to spin dash through. Sonic excitedly takes up the invitation, but Sally doesn't want Sonic to go at it alone. But he manages to convince her that this is the best option. With some reassurance and a quick goodbye, Sonic races through the barricade and speeds down the final stretch. This is all according to Snively's plan, as he instructs the Legion to hold off the rest of Sonic's friends so that he can watch the final one-on-one between Sonic and Eggman. Sonic enters the final chamber with Eggman, and the showdown begins. Everything has led to this. I'd like to mention, while writing this script, I had to step away after reading this issue and gather my thoughts. As I took a bit of time away from the chapter, another content creator, Low Arts, dropped a 3-hour-long retrospective covering the first 100 or so issues of Archie's Sonic, and I've gotta say, I've learned a lot, as I haven't dipped my toe into the pool of early Archie. Low Arts not only summarized everything brilliantly, but he also went the extra mile of using interviews of the writers to contextualize certain events in the comic, as well as its overall direction. The comic's first 50 issues were supposed to be stories that worked congruently with the plot of Sonic SatAM's story. When the show ended, however, instead of also ending the comic, the writers decided to continue the story, building upon the character arcs from before and expanding the world building. From the start of it all, Sonic and the Freedom Fighters were just upstart rebels, but eventually the story allowed itself to snowball, giving depth to these characters that are leagues above anything that we've seen from the game series. The characters learn of their roboticized parents they haven't seen since they were toddlers. Sally's father, King Max, discriminated against the Mobian people who were roboticized despite no longer being under robotics control. Sonic sets off on an expedition to find more Freedom Fighters. Tons and tons and tons of Echidna lore, the list goes on. All of this is to say that as someone who's explaining this series, I made a grave mistake in not being familiar with these elements of the story that Low Arts video has introduced me to. But it's because of Low Arts that I finally feel as if I'm able to give this issue the justice that it deserves. So here we go. This issue isn't just some egos and quips being thrown around until Eggman has a breakdown, no. It is significantly deeper than that. What do we know about this world? We know that Robotnik conquered all of Mobius when Sonic was very young, but alongside Sally and the others, Sonic managed to be the hero that the story needed him to be. Around issue 50, the Freedom Fighters have their last fight with Robotnik, which results in his death, but his carbon copy, Dr. Eggman, emerged later on. Think of it kind of like a King Piccolo and Piccolo Jr. kind of situation, but a lot more sciencey. Before the emergence of Eggman, Sonic had to contend with magicians, demigods, political wars, and so on. Even recently, he's had to deal with a space journey, Enerjack, Scourge, the same magicians, and so on. So now, we watch as Eggman reminds Sonic of how small he once was, how Eggman has managed to conquer the world, how for years his will was law and has been the strongest force in the world. But as their showdown begins, Sonic hits Eggman with the cold hard truth that a bunch of untrained kids managed to overcome him, that the world that he once had under his thumb is now slipping through his fingers, and that one-on-one, Sonic has a better winning streak over Eggman. I want to emphasize here so much that this issue is a huge deal, because it's not simply retreading the milestone of issue 50, where the goal was to beat Robotnik and save the day. It's nearly a celebration for both the writers and the audience that takes all of the accolades these characters have achieved, all the struggles, the growth, all the themes of change and perseverance which coalesce into Sonic's unwavering final assault on Eggman. The freedom fighters fought to survive in a world embellished in Eggman's tyranny, and despite winning before, had to still deal with the echoes of his oppression. Now, the freedom fighters fight to live in a world that they and many others have devoted their lives to restoring, and instead of standing in the way of a dictator, he is now standing in their way, and Sonic puts him down. Sonic, who's still a boy at heart, expects his victory to be taken with an attitude of sportsmanship, but Eggman goes berserk? Sally enters the chamber to witness the state of madness Eggman is currently in. Like Snively says, Sonic broke his spirit. This is gonna sound crazy, but suspend your disbelief. Imagine you're some form of totalitarian authority for a good period of your life, and suddenly it all comes crashing down by the hands of a few common folk. Despite all your efforts to preserve that power, it would be an impossibly tough pill to swallow. But for now, the day is saved. Eggman has been defeated. Despite that though, Sonic feels down. Returning to Lowart's video for a sec, there's a bit where he mentions that after Robotnik's defeat following issue 50, Sonic struggled with a sense of purpose, eventually learning that being a hero isn't about necessity, it's about choosing to be one. Sonic now re-experiences that feeling with Eggman defeated, but Sally reminds him that what's next is the adventure itself. It's an extension of his previous lesson, and a nice touch to end the issue with. Lo and behold, Snively keeps his distraught uncle in a straitjacket, while he and Dimitri welcome in the bride of the four houses, the Iron Queen herself. Normally while writing the script for these videos, I tend to complete the script within 1 or 2 sittings. This script took me 4 sittings. There is an overwhelming amount of nuance, consistency, and depth in these recent issues that simply recapping them would be a huge disservice. So if you're not a fan of my dissections, forgive me, as I'm about to speak profusely about the direction of Shadow's character. Sonic Universe 4 wraps up the Team Dark story. With the Chaos Emerald, Hope is now able to successfully send Shadow and Rouge to the Special Zone, as they have been assigned to retrieve another Chaos Emerald. When Feist, the god of the Special Zone, instructs them to complete his challenge in order to get the Chaos Emerald, Shadow, feeling the challenge is beneath him, tries to use the Chaos Control to skip the course, but it fails, and Feist explains that Shadow's power don't work in the Special Zone, and that they only have 30 seconds left to race to the Emerald. Shadow and Rouge work together to speed through the course. With the Emerald almost in their grasp, they are warped out of the zone as they were too late to the Emerald. While Rouge explains to the commander what happened, Shadow mopes about, feeling that he hasn't been on top of his game lately. His arrogance is what costed them the Emerald. Shadow spars with Omega to blow off steam, but when Omega starts conversation about Shadow's latest failure, Shadow pushes him away and goes elsewhere. Hope finds Shadow, and they sit on the mountaintop of the Gun HQ. As the ultimate life form, Shadow expresses that he expected himself to be perfect, that he was built to be someone that never fails. Hope shares her piece about how she feels like she failed the Not-Ho Kingdom by leaving it, just for Snively and Eggman to blow it up in issue 175. Shadow assures her that she's not at fault for something she could have never foreseen, and she echoes those words to him, saying that since he knows what to expect now, his failure is actually a setup for his success. The two bond a little more, and Hope reminds him of Maria. Later on, accompanied with Omega, Shadow and Rouge re-enter the Special Zone. Omega's a funny guy because all he can think about is unloading his ammo on Feist, but Rouge keeps him in line. Feist has a new challenge for Team Dark, and they make haste to the Emerald. Shadow helps the team avoid dead ends, and Omega scans for traps as Rouge uses her agility to navigate through them. They get to the center, but Feist puts up a crystal barrier around the Emerald, stopping Shadow from grabbing it. Feist gloats about them failing his challenge, inviting them to retry another day, but Omega fires away at Feist, allowing the other two to grab the Emerald. "How dare you assault a god in his own domain?" Feist shouts. Before warping away, however, Shadow says, "Deny me all you want, but with this, even a god must bow to the ultimate life form." The team celebrates a job well done. This concludes the first arc of Sonic Universe. But hold on, looks like we're going 25 years in the future again for another story. Wait, no, this is 30 years in the future, 5 years after the events of issue 167. Let's take a look at what we got here. Okay. Oh, the plot can be explained in 2 sentences. Remnants of the Dark Legion try to dethrone Sonic and restore King Shadow, managing to subdue most of the original Freedom Fighters. Once restored, King Shadow unleashes a new variant of perfect chaos onto the city, giving the children of the Freedom Fighters a chance to outdo their elders and save the day. It's a fun concept. Shadow comes back in time to save Sonic's family from an assassination. Lara Sue gets a ton of spotlight, many new faces of the next generation are introduced, and they all get to show their stuff alongside Sonic. Rutan, if you remember Leanda's child, was raised without her after the dethroning of King Shadow, so there's a grudge between him and Lara Sue. This is also her main motivation for yet again being the antagonist. Personally though, I'm sick of her. Leanda is a Team Rocket type beat where she always thinks she's a step ahead and ends up falling short every time. I'm at the point where I roll my eyes whenever she's involved with the story. King Shadow though, he's almost ruined these set of issues for me. He's literally just evil for the sake of it. The only thing I could justify him being so out of character in the future segment is that Sonic was caught in a Tachyon warp, so the world went years without Sonic in it, meaning Shadow was probably forced to make some hard decisions. But that's just headcanon. Nothing actually says that in the story, nor is it implied, and even if it were, him wanting mindless retribution is just very corny writing. All in all though, it was a pretty fun segment to read. All the kids are pretty interesting characters, we get to see a bit of Sonic's kids, and I find Lara Sue to be an otherwise compelling character. For King Shadow though, awful. Though to be fair, Shadow has been peak in Sonic Universe otherwise. Alrighty, that concludes today's video, the prelude to the Iron Dominion arc. Thank you for the support and tune in next time to finish out the saga. Spread love and be sure to subscribe. See you later everyone.